How's it going, y'all? Rosendo from MLH here. Let me know if you can hear me out there. I see we got some folks in the chat already. Love to see it. How's everyone doing? How is everyone doing? All right. Amazing. All right, so let's go ahead and get my screen shared here. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is going to be MongoDB 101. My name is Rosendo from MLH, and as always, I'm super excited to be here to keep Data Week rolling with some content about, you guessed it, data, but in particular, the data platform that goes by the name of MongoDB. All right, real quick, let me know in chat if you're familiar with MongoDB. Let me know whether you've used it before, whether you've heard of it before, or if this is your first time learning of its existence. Everything matters. Not familiar. All right, so we've got some folks that are going to get their minds blown today for the very first time. Love to see it. All right, first timer. No, we got some folks that are gonna be utilizing MongoDB for the first time. Just want to call out real quick at the top here. I've got that link scrolling across the bottom of the screen. That's the link to sign up and register for this workshop. So make sure you do so. I'm going to go ahead and drop it in chat for y'all as well. We got some folks that have heard of it but never used it. We got some folks that are familiar. All right. So just to kind of set things off here, the goal for today is going to be getting you all comfortable with using MongoDB and understanding exactly what MongoDB is with an in-depth explanation of some of its features and the capabilities possible with the platform. So before we get into all that, I'm going to go ahead and go over the agenda for today. So we have an hour together and we're going to learn a lot. So the first thing is we're going to do is have an introduction to MongoDB and the document model. If you don't know what that is, don't worry, we will explain. Then we're going to touch on data modeling in MongoDB. After that, we're going to do a brief intro into CRUD operations. If you've never heard of CRUD operations, it's create, read, update, and delete. And those are just things that you do within a database. And we're going to then go and review MongoDB's database as a service. Of course, we're going to cap off with Q&A. Feel free to ask questions as the session rolls, though, because I will be like pausing to take a look at the chat and seeing what y'all are up to and what y'all are curious about. All right. So let's get into it. So another crowd response here, some crowd participation. Does anyone here know why MongoDB is called MongoDB? Maybe the folks that have heard of it before and are familiar. And it's fine if you don't know. Well, we get swags, a lot of questions in the chat as well. All right. I actually didn't know this before I looked it up, but the founders of MongoDB set out to design a database specifically for developers. And it was, to prioritize scalability, high performance, and the flexibility to manage humongous amounts of data. And that's exactly what they did. They took the word humongous and they came up with Mongo, and then of course added DB for the database. So, the more you know. MongoDB is a type of NoSQL database. Absolutely. And yeah, not MangoDB, though that does sound delicious. I thought it was interesting as well, Tammy. Thanks for saying that. Yes, and DB stands for database. Exactly. All right. So really, let's just get back to the question, why MongoDB? Meaning there's going to be 100 other options that you can choose when it comes to a database for developing your modern applications. So why choose MongoDB? With MongoDB, you get the same foundational capabilities you expect from any other production database. So you're going to get ACID transactions, you're going to get query optimization, you're going to get comprehensive indexing, and also you'll have enterprise security. Plus, you'll have the utilization of the document model, which is something we're going to explain a little bit further. So really, let's start there by exploring what that document model is, its flexibility, and the benefits that it has. So when you're working with any database, it's really important to understand how the data is stored, because this is going to have a huge impact on your data security, the scalability, and just the overall performance of the database in general. So when you're using MongoDB's flexible document model, you can move quickly during development without having to sacrifice any of the other optimizations that you need for production. So here's an overview of MongoDB's hierarchy for organizing data. In this first section, we'll cover documents and collections. And then obviously we're going to be starting with documents, as you can see at the bottom of the pyramid there. The documents are going to be the bedrock of organizing data in MongoDB. So they typically store information about an object and any of its related metadata. And if you're unfamiliar with these terms, don't worry, we're going to kind of get into it a little bit later when you see how the actual data is broken down and formatted. So just know that the documents are basically the entries within your collection or your database. So the way the documents store data is by using field value pairs. The values can be a variety of data types, similar things that you would see in other databases. So you'll see strings, nums or numbers, dates, arrays, objects, and a whole lot of other things that we're going to get into. The traditional relational databases store data in tables. So if you were to think of an entity like a car, each attribute, it has the wheels, it has the car lights, it has like a certain type of color, would have to be stored into separate different columns within a relational database table. But here in MongoDB, we store the data in JSON-like objects, and it has a very flexible schema, which is something we'll also dive into later. So JSON is a lightweight data interchange format, and it's easy for humans to read and write, and it's easy for machines to parse through and generate as well. As you can see, it's just basically an object within squiggly lines, and you'll see the field value pairs there as the GIF starts to cycle back around. And yes, someone mentioned it before, the data is represented in JSON format. So it's one of the main, I think, advantages of MongoDB because JSON is so prevalent, especially in like, web technologies and just like any type of other programming that you might be doing involving data. So let's take a look again at this example animation. You'll notice how this document can represent an entire object or entity. So in this case, it's a car. And in it, we just have a few fields. We have the car ID, we have the wheels, car lights, and the paint color. So if we wanted, we could easily add more like engine type or the car brand or the year it was built or whatever it is that you want to add. All or nearly all of the information about an object or entity, whether it's the pieces of the car or a product in a catalog, can be contained within a single document that is set up like this. All right, so now that we understand what documents are, a group of documents is contained in a collection. So the collection basically houses all of the documents. If you were to look at it like a table in a relational database, the collection is the table here for MongoDB. So for example, the document from the previous slide could be from a collection called cars, which contains information about different car models. So you could have, sedans, coupes, convertibles, hatchbacks, whatever, any type of cars, basically, you name it, and it's going to be all contained into one collection. You should name it. Obviously, the collections will be based on, whatever documents they actually hold inside of them. A group of collections is then housed by a database. Something to note, typically when we talk about a database referring to like a database management system like MongoDB or maybe PostgreSQL, if you've heard that before, in the context of MongoDB architecture, a database is simply a group of collections. So once again, like going up and down, you've got collections that contain documents, and then you have databases that contain collections. And we're not really going to get into the specifics about nodes and clusters here, but as you can imagine, a node is also comprised of a group of databases, and then a cluster is further comprised by a group of nodes. So yeah, so this is essentially the entire layout of what you would see inside of a MongoDB instance. So now that we kind of understand the way that things work inside of a MongoDB database and just, in general inside of the collection and the documents as well, let's go into data modeling in MongoDB. So we've talked about MongoDB's flexible schema design before in other sessions. We're going to talk about it. We talked about it a little bit just now in the previous couple of slides, but right now you're probably wondering, how do you actually model a schema for your application? So that's one of the cool aspects about MongoDB's platform. It just really depends on what you're building. So you could have single document databases that are capable of expressing data relationships in a more nuanced way than relational databases do. So that means there are a ton of different considerations that you need to take into account when you're actually developing your schema design. All right. So if you want to kind of look and study schema design in MongoDB a little bit on your end, feel free to do so. This is going to be a cool link with some, like awesome resources that you can utilize as well. What I'll do is I will add that here to the screen as well as to the chat. Check it out. Basically everything that I'm going to be talking about can be found in the article that I just linked. So if you wanted to do a little bit of, oh, sorry, there's a typo here. If you wanted to do a little bit of independent research, you could do so there. And let me go ahead and grab that. Here we go. Grab that correct link for y'all. And look at some questions. Can we have MongoDB locally like SQL? Yes, absolutely. You could just like, download it onto your computer and run it locally. It's not something that you have to host on the cloud, especially if you're just developing in a, an environment where you want to do some testing. And it's free to use in that sense. You don't have to have any cloud credits or anything like that. But if you did want to actually go and develop on the cloud, use like MongoDB Atlas or MongoDB Compass, you could also do that. And I'll set some links here for y'all as well. So if you want to download MongoDB Atlas, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, you can do so here. And then also we have other features that and other like services that I'll be like linking out to. So now that we are digging in to the schema design, I highly recommend you ask yourself these questions when you're about to start modeling your data. So first things first, is your application read or write heavy? So this is going to influence whether you want to optimize for query performance or for write efficiency. For those of you that are unfamiliar with these concepts, reading into a database means that reading from a database, it means you're just grabbing information from the database and then displaying it to someone either in the query format in your command line interface or in your actual application. And then write heavy means that you're actually putting data into the database on a frequent basis. Second, we should understand exactly what data is frequently accessed together. So this concept is really key to MongoDB. It's basically if certain data is always going to be accessed at the same time, let's say it's like a user and then like all of the associated like books inside of a bookstore that the user currently owns. If that data is always going to be accessed together, that data should be stored together. Keep in mind the previous slides, we showed you how the document model actually works. Also keep in mind that MongoDB allows us to embed related data into a single document, which can significantly reduce the number of queries needed. So as I mentioned before in that example, if you have a user with a lot of different books associated to them and you're constantly going to be accessing them at the same time, it's good to store those all together at the same time. There is a MongoDB wiki, but it would probably be best for you to, and just for everyone else's context, there is someone asking about a MongoDB wiki here. It does exist, but it would be better for you to actually go into the MongoDB docs if you want to take a look over here. And I'll go ahead and drop that in chat for y'all as well. Cool. Check that out and check out like some of the documentation. You could ask any questions to the AI bot that's in there actually, and it should answer it because it's trained directly on the MongoDB documents, all the MongoDB documentation. All right. So we've talked about whether your application's read or write heavy. We've talked about whether or not you understand which data is going to be accessed together frequently. Next, we need to think about our performance requirements. And this is going to influence various decisions about things like indexing or sharding or whether to embed or reference related data. So those are concepts that we're going to be going over in a little bit. Finally, we also need to consider scalability. So this is how your data is going to grow over time and how the schema design we choose is going to accommodate that growth. So really understanding your end goal prior to modeling your data is going to really help you to unlock all of MongoDB's benefits, especially since proper schema design is one of the most critical aspects of deploying a really good database and then building a really good application. So while it may be tempting to just go in and just start designing a MongoDB schema, which I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, especially if you're learning for the first time. I say go in there and get your hands dirty. But when you're actually starting to think about whether or not you're going to take that database and utilize it inside of an application, these are definitely like schema design is definitely something that you want to take into consideration. So now that we've covered that, let's go ahead and quickly go over the difference between a relational schema design and a MongoDB schema design. So we know that we've seen a lot of differences between the relational ways of doing things and the MongoDB document way of doing things. I went over the entire structure of how data is kind of like formatted inside of MongoDB and stored. But bear with me, I'm not being repetitive for no reason. There are actually a lot of very important differences between relational databases and MongoDB, and schema is one of them. So when you're designing a relational schema, developers are going to model their schema independent of queries. So this requires normalization or the processes of splitting up your data into tables so you don't duplicate data. Then like like basically you're going in there and you have all of your data segmented from one another and stored in different places. So in the relational example, you can see that the user data, it's just split into separate tables that can be later joined together, and they're going to be using things like foreign keys, and in this case it's going to be like a user ID column in the professions and cars table, and when those user IDs match up, those that then those like that data from those different tables can be joined to one another. This is in a relational schema. So let's take a look at the MongoDB schema. It works a little differently because there really isn't a formal process, algorithm, or hard and fast rules for you to have to structure your data, to have to structure your schema. Pardon. It's important that when you're designing it to keep in mind your schema is the only thing that matters, is that you design one that will actually work well for your application. So you can see that instead of having our data in various documents and collections, we're actually just embedding our data into arrays and objects within the user object. So this is the one on the right side, folks. This allows you to make a simple query to just pull all of that data together for your application. So instead of having to do a join query or anything like that, what you're going to do is you're just going to go in and you're going to pull this entire object, and you'll be able to get access to all of the data that's within it. All right. So I've said the word embedding quite a lot. And also like I mentioned it in the previous slide. So right now we're going to go over embedding versus referencing, unless there are any questions. Yeah, we got someone saying that's interesting. Well, I am flattered. I love that you love it. All right. So let's jump into embedding versus referencing. So this is like, the choice between how you're actually going to format your data and how you're going to add to your data as your application grows. It really depends on the relationships that you want your data to have within your collections and within your documents. So there are 4 options depending on which side of the relationship we're embedding or referencing. So as you can see from the diagram, we have embedding on the one side of the relationship, embedding on the many side of the relationship, and then similarly for referencing, we have the one and the many side of both relationships. And we're going to obviously get this explained for y'all in a second. I just want to note that it's also possible to reference on both sides, even though it's a little bit less common. You can do both referencing and embedding, even though it's not something you're typically going to do. I just wanted to mention that. So jumping into what those 4 aspects of embedding and referencing are, basically you have things called relationships within your data. There's one to many, there's one to one. So for the one-to-one relationships, we can embed the related data directly within the parent document. So this keeps the related data together and it simplifies your queries. So for example, attributes for a product can be embedded as an array within the product document that you see on the screen here. And here the many attributes are embedded within the product. So as you can see here, everything bold is listed as an array and it's embedded into that specific document. For one-to-many relationships, embedding is going to be the preferred approach to keep the data that is accessed together, stored together. And I'm going to keep saying that throughout the entire presentation, because once again, it just makes, like, when you have the data that's always accessed together, stored in the same place, it's just going to make the performance of your database that much more efficient. So in this case, the one product is embedded within each of the many review documents. So this can lead to data duplication, but in some scenarios that actually may be beneficial, once again, for efficiency of actually reading from your database and making sure that all of your queries are more performant. So bear in mind, we might want to use references when the related data set is large, or when the data is often accessed independently, meaning we may want to query or update the referenced information by itself regularly in this case, but we're just going to look into that in a moment. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, a reference to something else is, a reference is basically pointing towards another document using some sort of like ID, and then instead of like listing all of and embedding all of that data into a specific document. And here we're going to take a look at it. You can use referencing on the one side of the relationship. And in this case, each review document has a unique identifier. So here we have a review ID, and then the product document contains an array of these review IDs. So as you can see, like, the actual reviews are not embedded into the product document, but rather we have references to user IDs that then point towards those review documents that are probably listed or stored in a different collection. So if necessary, you can join the data from the products in the reviews collections using these IDs. And it's Very similar for the many side of the relationship. Here, each review document has a product ID used to refer to the product document. So here is like, this is the review, and then this is the product that's being reviewed and being represented by this document. Okay. All right. So we've got folks that are, I'm just checking for questions here. We're going to do some hands-on practices. You can go in and do some hands-on practices. I'm going to show you how to do that yourself. You could spin up your own database using like MongoDB Atlas, and then also look at it through MongoDB Compass. I'm going to show you some of that stuff. What I'm going to be doing today, after we kind of go over some of this more educational material, we're going to do a hands-on demo, and I'll show you how you can actually how it actually works in an application. I'll be sending the links along for that shortly. Love to hear it, Octo Daniel. Love that you're learning. That's really great to hear. Appreciate you. Suppose someone doesn't have cars, so do we include fields in their document and then we place null there, or will we omit that field? You could just omit that field. So I mean, I would imagine, like, let's say it's like the DMV, or I don't know how it works in your locality, but here we have something called like the motor vehicles department, and they have a database of everyone who has a driver's license. So in that database, there might be like a field, like in that document for a specific person, there might be a field that says driver's license, and then after that it says like actual like car model like that they own. So in that case, yes, if they don't own a car, you would put null there. But that's just like, an example I'm coming up with off the top of my head. There are probably different scenarios where you would use like null as a field there. So and that's simply because you want to represent the fact that that person does not have a car that is associated to them stored inside of any of your collections, inside of any of your databases. So if you were here's the next one. If you were designing MongoDB from scratch today, what would you change? Like honestly, like I said, you would go back and you would take a look at what it is you're trying to build, what the database is for, the type of data you're going to store. I wouldn't necessarily change anything. I would just approach it in a more thoughtful, forward-thinking manner. And how does atomic transactions work in MongoDB? It works very, very similarly to some of the ways that it works in like other databases. Basically, things are all happening at the same time, but the way that they're processed within MongoDB just makes sure that you're actually only like inputting in and updating information that actually still lives within the database itself. If you want to kind of dig into it a little bit more, I know that was kind of like a roundabout explanation there. If you want to dig into it a little bit more, definitely ask that in the MongoDB docs. I'm actually going to be demoing the MongoDB docs a little bit later as well. So if you want to stick around for that, definitely make sure to do so. Do you want to hack MongoDB this week? Oh yeah, Tammy, you've got a proposition here about hacking with MongoDB. I suggest y'all definitely do so. Love to see some teamwork happening. All right. So now that we got those questions answered, let's talk about the many-to-many relationships. So you can either embed or reference depending on your requirements. It's also possible to use a combination of embedding and referencing, but we won't really be covering that today. I just wanted to show y'all in case you were curious. Like I said before, you could use both, like embedding and referencing, and then you could do many-to-many as well. So now that we have a better understanding of both embedding and referencing, let's talk about MongoDB Atlas and MongoDB Compass. So obviously, this is what I was talking about earlier. Let's focus on the operational capabilities in MongoDB Atlas. So what Atlas provides is going to be a suite of services to streamline the development of cloud-based applications. So whatever your needs might be. With these tools, you can focus on just building unique features rather than managing database infrastructure. Since it's a database as a service, Atlas actually automates and enhances processes for database management. It's going to include deployment, monitoring, backup, and restoration, as well as archiving. It does all of this, along with having a set of really robust built-in security features. I know people were talking about having ACID transactions and atomic transactions, just atomic transactions in more specifically. There are a lot of built-in security features within MongoDB that make sure that all of your data is ACID compliant. So on top of that, Atlas provides built-in replication for all database deployments. This is going to make sure that you have, something like built-in redundancies. So in case like one part of your like database sort of like falls off the map or is no longer accessible, there is a backup for it. and this is going to prevent any events of disruption that may occur. God forbid, but sometimes they do happen. So in this case, you were wondering how you access MongoDB Atlas. I'll go ahead and drop the link here. There are two ways that you can do it. You can actually do it through the GitHub Student Developer Pack. So if you have access to the GitHub Student Developer Pack, you can go in there. It is paid, but you do get a free startup credit. So you can either access it from the GitHub Student Developer Pack, or you could access it directly with MongoDB. And I've dropped both of the links in there for you as well. So make sure you check it out. All right, jumping into MongoDB Compass. So I talked about this earlier. I'm going to be showing it to you a little bit later in a demo. MongoDB Compass is basically a graphical user interface, and it's great if you're more of a visual learner. You like to see like all the rows in your database and you want to interact with your data in that way. It's also a great way to create things like aggregation pipelines, sharing access with your database with other people using just a URI connection. And then, or maybe you want to query your database using some of Compass's built-in AI features. This is a great place to do it. I highly suggest you checking it out. These are, oh, yeah, you're right. The links are not working. I have the wrong links there. Apologies. So here we go. It's missing the data between GHW and 925. It should be GHW data 925. So this link that I just showed you is going to be for you to access MongoDB Atlas. And then this next link I'm going to send is going to be for you to access MongoDB Compass. And then if you want to access MongoDB, if you want to access MongoDB Atlas using GitHub Student Developer Pack, you could use this link here. Hopefully those work. Thank you for the heads up. I apologize about that. All of the links that I have embedded inside of my presentation are the wrong ones, but the ones I have on here are good. The ones that I just sent are good. All right. So last but not least, I also want to take a quick second to chat about the MongoDB AI chatbot. So this is a really cool little like helper basically that lives on the MongoDB documentation page, and it's trained on all of the MongoDB documentation data. So if you need help creating anything, like I said, like aggregation pipelines or understanding how to make a query, or understanding how to set up certain things within like a standard like a MongoDB SDK, this is going to be a great place for you to get some quick answers. Definitely check it out. And there's going to be the AI chatbot there. You're going to see it right away when it pops up. All right. So now that we've explored the document model, the heart of MongoDB, and what sets it apart from other databases, we're going to talk about some of the core, I guess, like functions or features or things that you would be actually doing with the database using MongoDB. So a schema isn't static. Basically, it exists to serve a living, breathing application that people are using in real time. So you need to make sure that you're able to actually go in there and manipulate data and update it so that your users' needs can be met. And that's where, at least at a foundational level, the CRUD operations come in. So CRUD, once again, it's create, read, update, and delete. And this is how you're going to interact with your data and bring your schema to life. Basically, it's how you store, retrieve, modify any type of data as part of your application's workflow. So let's dive right into it. So let's just review the typical syntax. Here we're going to have DB, that's going to be a keyword. Then we're going to have collection or call name. Then we're going to have operator or command. Then we're going to have a query/filter. This is a criteria. And then we're going to have options or settings. And then here, as you can see, this is going to be an example of a query that you would be using. Obviously, sometimes you're going to write your code inside of a language that you're familiar with within your program. So in that case, you'll be using a library. So this is essentially what it would look like inside of your program if you were to actually programmatically write this query. So you're going to see here db.collection find. So this is the database that you're in, the collection that you're using, and then the find it is going to be basically the operator or the command that you're using. And then the query filter is going to be the age. So here we're going to get everything that's equal to 25 in terms of age. And then for projection, or these are going to be the options in the settings, you're going to only be including the name and age fields inside of the results that you pull out of your database. And then sort, the -1 means you're going to sort it in descending order. And then the limit 10, you're just only going to get the first 10 results that come up. All right. So now that we kind of understand the top level of everything, we're going to learn how to insert data into the database. So if you have like, if you're trying to build a command basically that puts data inside of your database, this is how you're going to do it. I'm going to show you how to do this in MongoDB shell syntax. So if you're not familiar with MongoDB shell, it's just a command line experience that you can use when you're working with your database. You could also, use these commands in other places. If you wanted to download a library, like I was mentioning before, you could do it in any of the major programming languages. MongoDB supports C, Java, Node.js, Go, Python. I'm sure there are a couple more, and you could easily work with your data in your favorite programming language. Okay, so let's take a look at how to insert data. Whew, I'm talking a lot. All right. So the first thing is this is the current database that you're in, and this is just going to be like the overall anatomy of the command you would use in order to actually insert data into your database. So you're going to be inserting data into your authors collection, and you're going to be inserting one document. So here you could also use an insert many command if you want to insert, like, if you wanted to insert multiple documents, but here we're just using the one. And then the next thing we're doing is we're passing a new document to this method. And in this case, it's going to be a document for the author, Jane Austen. And this document is going to include her name, an array of the IDs for the books that she's written, and then also an array of her aliases. And once you execute this command, you will insert that one entry into your author's collection. And so this is going to be a document that you insert into that collection. Read is very similar. So it's how you retrieve the data from your database. And the syntax is going to feel very similar to the command we just looked at. So once again, you're going to see that we're in the current DB, the database. It's inside of the author's collection. And then we're going to find all of the documents that match the query that we're about to go over. There's also an option to find one. So if you don't want to retrieve all of the documents, you could just find one. And what the find one command is going to do is going to find the first one that pops up inside of the collection itself. Next, we're going to pass a query to the find method. And in this case, we're querying for documents where the name field is set to Jane Austen. And once you execute this, you'll get all of the documents within the author's collection that have the name Jane Austen. Pretty simple. Next is update. So we're going to talk about updating the data. It's pretty important. Sometimes, data changes over time, and you want to make sure that it is up to date with what your users want and need. So here, once again, we're going to have the database that we're in, the collection named authors, and we're going to update one document here. Once again, you could update many documents. There's like, different types of methods here that you can use. Also, look through the documentation. You'll find a list of all of the methods that you could use within MongoDB. So in this case, we're just going to be updating one, and then we'll update the first document that MongoDB finds. And then we're going to use that update one to fix a typo. See here, we've spelled Austin like the city. If you're unfamiliar with the city, Jane Austen's last name is spelled with an E, not an I. And here we're going to basically pass two parameters over through the update one method. And the first one is going to be used as a filter. In this case, we're going to be searching for documents where the name is set to Jane Austen with an I. So find everything with a typo inside of it. And then we're going to be using the $set. We're going to be using $set to update the name field to be Jane Austen with an E. Once you execute this command, it's going to find the first entry with any type of typo, and then, well, with the typo specifically where the E is an I, and then it's going to set that, basically correct that typo and set the name to the correct spelling that we provided here. And finally, let's talk about delete. So again, very similar syntax. We've got the database. We've got the collection of authors. We're going to delete one. You could always delete many. It's another, it's just a different method that you can use. But here we're going to be deleting one. It's going to be the first thing that we find that matches this filter. And the filter here being Jane Austen with the misspelling of an I instead of an E. And once you execute that, it's going to delete that document with the misspelling inside of it. All right. So now we're going to take a look at our live example. But before that, let me go in and check for your questions. Is MongoDB open source? MongoDB, I don't believe is currently open source. You have to fact check me on that, but something we could definitely look into if you'd like. Is this Python syntax? No, this is going to be MongoDB shell syntax, as I mentioned. If you want to take a look at how you would implement this in Python, take a look at the documentation, and then the SDK will have specific documentation as well for you to do it programmatically. This reminds me of pandas, maybe. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the way like some certain like databases query and like basically do these commands, like any type of CRUD operations are going to be quite similar. I think in a lot of ways it's like just pretty basic pretty basic database knowledge that you should have. And it helps because a lot of folks use different types of databases as well. So as I mentioned, we are going to be jumping into a live example. So here I've prepared a link for y'all to check out. And from my end, what I'm going to do is I am going to show you the application here. You could access this application through the link I just dropped in chat. And also I'm going to update the banner here so y'all can take a look yourselves. And let's save it. So this is an application that folks from the MongoDB team actually built. It's essentially a blog application. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started. I'm going to sign up, and I'm going to call myself Riggedy Row, and I'm going to say GHW workshop at GHW.com. Obviously, this is all made up. It's not it is a real application. It's not a live application. So, you don't have to we don't have to be too fussy about everything. So as you can see, I just created a new user inside of this application. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the users now inside of MongoDB Atlas, inside of MongoDB Compass, and it should show me exactly the user that I just created. And as you can see, here we go. So we got some of you folks at home joining in. So Troy here, shout out to you, and Darshan as well. And then here I've got the Riggedy Row at the GHW workshop at GHW.com. So this is, as you can see, an example of writing something into your database. And then here, as we jump back into Mongo Story, we're going to go ahead and create some content. So the one thing I want to do is create some content. I'm going to show you this, and we could talk about MongoDB hackathon projects. This is a suggested topic that I want to generate. I'm going to go ahead and generate this content. And while that's happening, I'm going to kind of, explain how this works from the back end. Basically, it's using some sort of generative AI that takes your prompt and then runs it through the program itself, and then it generates a title and content for you, and then it also formats the blog content in a way that would make it more like formatted for the website itself. So here it's taking a little while. You could also toggle the expertise level here. It's generating some stuff, taking a little while. I think I can just go ahead and open up another instance of this, so I could just go into a live example. So I should be logged in still, hopefully. All right. So this is actually an unpublished like document here. We could also go in and edit it if we'd like. So we can talk about this Rosendo's e-commerce. So before I go in and actually update this, what I'm going to show you is let's find this in Compass first. So this is going to be an example of actually updating. So we're going to jump into the content section of Atlas, and we're going to find the one that we were just using. Oh no, I forgot the name of it. Okay, so we'll find this one, Tupac Life. I'm gonna update Tupac Life to say Rosendo's Life instead, and then now and then you're gonna see how we could actually update stuff, and we're gonna look for it. If we could find it, here we go. And it's unpublished, but we're gonna go ahead and say Rosendo's Life, and then we're gonna update the content. Oh, I guess I don't have, you know what? I just realized I only have read and write access to this. So we'll go ahead and just check on our content from before. And as you can see, the MongoDB Hackathons project is up and running. You could also run like content analysis on it through AI features, but here I'm just going to go ahead and create the content. And then once that's done, it should pop up on the screen as something that is unpublished currently. So while that's happening, obviously it's taking a little while. I know some of you are probably playing around with it here. Um, I missed it. Were those users us? Yes. There were some folks that just joined right now and probably clicked on the link and then signed up for an account. So that's pretty cool. And this is essentially how the MongoDB database works in real time. So here, after I create this content, what it's going to do is it's actually going to, oh no, what happened to it? It's actually going to create another entry or another document inside of the database that basically represents the content that I've created. Hey, oh no, the content didn't work. But here, obviously, it's an AI or an LL. Is it AI or a LLM model? This it's using a generative AI API. So it's not really like a model per se. It probably uses like a specific model when actually generating the content. So let's just see here, hackathons. Let's do student level. Let's try to generate this content. I want to show you all this. Unfortunately, it just like kind of like bugged out on me a second ago. Oh, that's why, because I clicked out of it. Okay. Well, either way, so let me just jump back into MongoDB Compass. As you can see here, all of this stuff that got put into the that gets published onto that website gets added here under content. And then, obviously there are going to be other things like settings and social media posts, things that we're not really going to be looking into. But if you are signing up here, you have other folks that are kind of signed up here as well. So we got Troy and Darshan, and then from previous sessions we have Pash and other folks that were in there and actually signed up in real time. Either way, that's our live example. The other one that I want to show y'all that probably works a little bit better, and my apologies, I actually tried it out earlier. It did work. Everything was working pretty well. But this is going to be a Spotify application that MongoDB uses, and I'll go ahead and get that up and running here on the screen as well. And I'll just jump back here and then go ahead and access it. So it's going to be the same thing. I want to register for an account. I'm just going to put my name backwards and I'm going to say test at test. You know what? That's probably taken. Test at GHW.com. And then we're going to register. Okay. Yeah, I know. All right. So test at GHW.com. Then log in. Okay, yeah, they want me to change my password, and it's going to be the same thing as before. Obviously, this is going to create a user on the back end for me, and what it's going to do is it's going to now you're going to be able to see it inside of Compass itself, and I can show you that here. If I jump into my other, this one should be it, right? Yeah. So if I jump into my other cluster here, and then jump into the users database, you're going to see, or the users collection, pardon me. Yeah, we've got Abhinav that just signed up, and then we've got Pili Rosendo. This is the account I just made. And you'll see here, this is the way the object is represented inside of Compass. You'll have the password hash, and then the timestamps for when it was created, and also the email, obviously. And then you're going to have the object ID. So the cool thing about this application is you can actually go in and you could start listening to stuff. And not only that, you could also start creating a playlist on your own. So let's go into artists, or sorry about that. I'm going to go into library. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a playlist, and I'm going to call this GHW Data Week. And I'm going to create a playlist. And from here, what I want to do is I want to add songs to the playlist. So let's go back home. And let's add some stuff to our playlist. I'll just go ahead and add this, add to GHW Data Week, same thing here. And what we're doing now is we had the playlist. It was an object inside of our playlists. And what we're doing now is we're actually adding things to that playlist. So we're updating the actual document inside of MongoDB Compass. So if we go into playlists here, we're going to see GHW Data Week all the way at the bottom over here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and expand it. And you're going to see that all of the songs that that I added there are going to be listed here, and they're going to be referenced. They're not actually being embedded into this document. They're actually being referenced using an object ID. And the reason for that is because these songs actually have a lot of information already associated to them. And this is just the best way to model this type of relationship. If you're, and it's going to take a little while for the songs to pop up, but yeah, like, you don't want to have to embed all of this data into every single playlist, which is, one of the advantages of referencing in this case. But here, you are embedding uh, the actual like tags that people use. And then here you have music embeddings. These are just like, like obvious, like these are for, I think, utilizing it for vector search. And then these embeddings here, you have the lyrics to the song itself. You want to embed that into the actual object. But here, as as I mentioned before, the playlist here is GHW Data Week. It currently has these four songs inside of it. What happens if I add a fifth? Those 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's add this one. Let's take a look at it here inside of my library. And you'll see I have the 5 here. And let's go back into MongoDB Compass, and you'll see after I refresh this, my GHW Data Week playlist is now going to have 5 songs. So once again, this is just a great way of like, kind of showing y'all how we're actually updating the database in real time. And obviously here we have other references that I want to point out. You're going to see this object ID. This is my user ID. Ends in 4C90. If you go into users here, you're going to see that this ID matches up. It's going to be ending in 4C90 as well. So pretty cool stuff there. Just a quick demo of some of the stuff that you can do inside of MongoDB. Let's go back. I just published one content. Can you check? Yeah, so let's check out Mongo Story. And let's jump in here. Actually, it would probably make more sense to put it inside to look inside of Compass, because I don't think that your content will actually persist to mine. So what's the content called, Tracy? 1111. Awesome. All right, let me refresh here. It looks like, yeah, so it looks like one piece of content is coming in. So we got 32. It might be at the bottom here. And here we go. So we've got AI assistant and user is the author. We've got AI features in here. We've got the title 1111 with the content 111, and then it's got 3 views already. So it's very popular already at this point. That's pretty awesome. And yeah, I mean, this is essentially it. This is MongoDB Compass. Once again, you could download it yourself. It's going to be a desktop application, and it's just kind of like a cool way for you to go in and like, visualize your data and take a look at stuff. We're not going to be able to actually generate a lot of this stuff here because I don't have a lot of access to this database, because it's something that the MongoDB team created. I'm only like, I only have read and write permissions to these databases. But when you spin one up yourself, what you're going to do is you're going to create a connection here. And then, you take your URI from your data connection string, which you're going to generate from MongoDB Atlas. And then you're going to plop it in here, and then you'll be able to see all of your databases from your actual MongoDB instance displayed inside of Compass. All right, bro, you're famous. Love it. All right. So now that we've kind of checked things out on the demo side, I do want to talk about MongoDB skills badges, because here at Global Hack Week, we actually have a ton of different challenges that y'all can engage with in order to basically build the number of skill badges that you have, and also like, kind of verify the types of things that you're learning, especially in sessions like this. So we're just going to continue. So basically with like technology, it's always evolving. Things are always changing. It's really important for you to be able to validate and showcase the specific skills and knowledge that you have. And that's why MongoDB has developed the MongoDB Skills Badges program. And this program is really just a way for you to demonstrate your expertise with MongoDB. And it's going to be a quick, structured, and recognized manner. Here's how you can get yours. In preparation, just basically you're going to start by watching short informative videos similar to this session, and then you're going to have a 10 question skill check. So it says 60 to 90 minutes here. I'll be honest with y'all, I've run this workshop a lot. So the first skills badge that I picked up was pretty easy to pick up for me because it was all about CRUD operations and just like basic database administration. So I was able to go in there and do it in maybe like 10 minutes. I actually didn't have to watch any of the videos. I just went in and answered the questions, and as long as you get a passing grade on those questions, you can retrieve the skills badge. In your cases, I would say if you're less familiar, I know some of y'all have just heard of MongoDB for the first time today. In those cases, I would recommend you going in and watching the videos and then actually trying to learn a little bit more, because the questions are very much geared towards the content that's there. With that being said, a lot of the content that we went over today is also going to be relevant to the skills badges that you can retrieve from the MongoDB skills badge program. So by the end of this process, you should be able to go in. Once you've passed your skills check, you're going to have a bunch of badges that you can go in and actually display. And these are the different badges that you can actually earn. So it's going to be the MongoDB skills badge for relational to document model, schema patterns. These are all things, actually the data modeling stuff you could actually probably go in and have a really good background on doing as well. But here, if you're engaging with challenges inside of Global Hack Week, just go over to ghw.mlh.io/challenges, and you'll be able to see the ones that we have featured. I would recommend the one that's MongoDB for students, and then obviously after this workshop, the one for CRUD operations and relational to document model. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And someone's saying, what are the use cases of the badges? Yeah, so pretty much displaying them here. There are a ton. There's like so many. You could just go through and kind of check it out and see which ones kind of resonate with you the most. But the ones that I would encourage you to go for after this workshop are going to be the MongoDB for students, and then the CRUD operations, as well as the relational to document model. After this, we're also going to be running a workshop on vector search. So you can maybe like if you stick around and you want to learn a little bit more about MongoDB vector search, you can go in and kind of check out the skill badges that are related to that. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I can show y'all my skill badges in a second, the ones that I earned the last time. But for now, it's Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in chat here. While y'all are doing that, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to try to find or try to sign into my Credly account so I can show y'all, so I can show off my badges here. And let me just jump into the comment section and scroll through, make sure we don't have any questions here. All right, so Yushan has a question. Can I join by watching videos if you can't join the live stream? Yeah, of course. That's fine. Totally. The videos themselves are like embedded into the challenges. Like you'll see it. Everything's run on, I think it's called a platform called Instruct, and it's inside of like the MongoDB skills badges like platform. So you'll see everything there. Where could we access the backend of MongoDB? Yeah, so you can access, there's different ways to do it. Like I said, if you sign up for Atlas, you'll be able to see all of your clusters, collections, databases, collections, and the documents that are inside of them. You'll be able to see that in basically a graphical user interface that lives on your browser. And then from there, you could actually download MongoDB Compass. And what that's going to do is going to give you an application where you can like sort of do the same thing and then engage with your database that way. The other way you could do it is if you're just leveraging MongoDB locally, like through your personal command line, and just like you have like maybe a folder set up on your desktop, you can go in there and you could just like basically display the entire schema using any type of using the command line, and it'll show you like everything is inside of your databases. Where can we find the credentials again? So basically what you're going to do is you're going to go into the challenges page, ghw.mlh.io/challenges, and you're going to go in and check it out there. You're going to check out the challenges. Let me just show it to y'all. Alrighty. So this is the one for the basic student skills badge that I just clicked on. And you're going to go into MongoDB University. And it's going to come up soon, I promise. Look at those dots. Means stuff is happening. All right. And then here, you go in, you would register. You could enroll if you're already signed in. Already enrolled, sign in. I'm hoping it has me saved because it doesn't. All right. All right. Now I got to remember which account I used. Oh no. Anyway, um, I'm not gonna wrestle with my I'm not gonna wrestle with my credentials right now. But as you can see, I did go in and complete some of this stuff. So these are my skills badges. If you can view my dashboard. So these are the 5 Credly badges that I have, and you can go in and you could actually share them on LinkedIn or on Twitter or anything like that. If you view my profile, you'll see I'm pretty sure I got all 5 of the ones from last time. Yeah, there you go. So these are the ones that you should be able to go in and actually validate on your own and actually redeem on your own. So you have the one for CRUD operations, the relational model, the MongoDB basics for students, and then for later on for the next session, you'll be able to do AI powered search and then also RAG applications. Let's see the questions here. Are the badges useful in professional settings? I mean, more so for you than for me, I would say. I don't think people want to see how skilled Rosendo is with MongoDB badges. But if you're starting out for the first time, you know, if you're a student right now and you're looking to get your first internship and you want to display to potential employers or to potential like programs and companies that you have a familiarity with MongoDB databases, is very prevalent in the industry. It's a very useful skill to have. These are great ways of verifying and certifying that you have like some sort of like base level knowledge of the topics that MongoDB has to offer. So definitely useful in professional settings. Which of these badges can be useful for machine learning? Like I said before, go into the MongoDB university, and you should be able to search for many different types of badges, as you can see here. So you've got administrator stuff, MongoDB Python developer path, onboarding, MongoDB Gen AI developer. There's a ton of stuff here, and I'm sure some of it is good for machine learning. Introduction to AI and vector search. So this would probably be a good one. It's a foundational level. So this is probably something that you can jump into today as well. Check out the skills badges that are there. Find the ones that you think are interesting. The ones that we've curated for you at Global Hack Week are going to be the students the basics for students. Then we have the let me see here. Let me just filter down. Then we have the CRUD operations one. Then we have the RAG with MongoDB. So that's probably good for machine learning if you're looking at like augmented retrieval or anything like that. Anything generative AI related. Vector skills, vector search skills, relational to document model skills badge, and then obviously we have stuff where you could actually sign up for MongoDB Atlas. All right. I learned SQL myself. Is there a similarity between MongoDB and MySQL? There is a similarity in the way that they're both databases, but basically the entire session has been focused on showing you what the differences are between relational and non-relational databases. So as far as SQL, the querying language is concerned, MongoDB's querying language or NoSQL is going to be a lot different. For that, I would recommend checking out the documentation so that you can kind of get a better look at how everything kind of works from the actual like language that you're using to query your database. And it looks like thank you. Someone had stepped in and already answered. MongoDB MCP, would love to try it out. Way is over here creeping in YouTube. Love it. All right. And we've got, are the badges on MLH associated to the MongoDB official? Yes, they are. So you're basically, we just have the challenges stored on our website, and then you're going to go in and actually claim them from the MongoDB platform. So, yeah, that's going to be it. All right. All right. That is it for this workshop in particular. I'm going to be around in the next couple of minutes to do the vector search workshop. So if you want to stick around, feel free to do so. Just make sure that you go in and refresh your browser. But for the time being, I'm going to take a 1-minute break and then I will be back. I'll come in and we're going to be coming in hot. We're going to be learning about vector search and doing some demos and stuff like that. So definitely stick around. But for now, goodbye, and I will see you in just a moment. All right, y'all.